we are going to learn how to make this quilt behind us, and I have a free pattern for you. Hi, Makers Monday is a weekly series that I have that comes out 3 o'clock every Monday, where we talk about a project or a technique, and today we're going to talk about this one. Now, this is a quilt I made several years ago. It's a kind of a go-to pattern that I have, and I love it. It's super easy, and I thought I would write a pattern and share it with you, and you might not even need the pattern. If you follow along with me, you might be just fine, but if not, you can go to softsquares.com, and under patterns, there's a link in there where you can get a free download. So let's talk about this. This has 4 groupings of 2 fabrics. So we've got these 2 fabrics and these 2. This is really dark. I would recommend maybe breaking it up. But these 2 and these 2, these, and these, and these. And this is another one where the blocks are a little too similar in color. But I did try to break it up, so these 2 did not end up near each other. But I have 4 blocks, and then I put them together and made sure that when I laid them out, the same block was always in the upper left. And then I put them on an angle, and I put them up here in a pattern. So we're going to number this block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4, and then we start over. 1 and 2. The pattern the quilt I have right here is actually square with no borders on it, and I have washed and loved this. This is a very used quilt, but it's been a lot of fun. So anyway, I'm going to make this with the pattern, and for today, 2 rows longer. So instead of being 6 by 6, it's going to be 6 across by 8 down. So when it repeats to here, it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's actually going to go through 2 sets of these. The reason I want to make it bigger, you can stop it at any size that you want, but it was easier to cut the fabric out, and then it's a better size, because you're going to need 1/2 yard of fabric for each color. And since there's 4 blocks with 2 in each color, we need 8 different fabrics. Now, I picked this up through Keepsake Quilts, and what I'm using, and it's going to be this line. Isn't that going to be pretty? Let's cut this guy. So let's make sure everybody is lined up. Put your fold, make sure it's on the line so you have a true 90 degree. That way you know you're not cutting something on an angle. Now we're going to go in 5 1/4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 1/4. So this gives us the largest amount of squares that we can get out of this fabric. If you choose to make them 5 inches, go for it, but 5 1/4 will be the largest square that you can get out of here to get what you need to make the quilt. So I wanted to see how, make it as big as I could, and that's where 5 1/4 comes from. The quilt that's on the wall, the purple one, is actually 5 1/2, but I was using random yardage and it worked, but I've definitely figured out how to do this with 1/2 yard. We are going to hold on to this, and we're going to need it later. Okay, so for now, move it to the side. Okay, so this is all that's left, and they are 1.5 inches. You could do what you want with these. They are usable. All right, so I've just cut little stacks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the colors. Okay, you should have 12 of each. Okay, I'm going to finish cutting the rest of the fabric Then we're going to make blocks. The way you make your block is you're going to take one of your little sets. If your pattern has a direction, just keep that in mind. And that's how you build your block. Super easy. And if you don't like it that way, when you go to assemble, just turn it, turn it like that. You're going to go through the whole stack of all of them, making blocks like this, and then press them open. And then the rest of it is just laying out. And then we're going to talk about borders. Those are okay. So now we're going to go back to these. And this is if you want to add a border. The purple quilt that I had shown you does not have a border and it's square. So you can stop here if you want. But you have enough fabric between this and the fabric. I suggested you grab to make an inner, a middle, and an outer border. Okay, but I'm going to show you what my plan is for this, which is to do an extra border. Now, there's about 2 1/4 inches of these. Just depends on how your fabric was cut. We only need 2 inches. Okay, so you're gonna have a teeny tiny bit of extra, which those skinny strips are really good for bundling fabric. So I use them all the time. So this is the waist. Not bad, right? So this I was talking about, you can use these to make bundles around your fat quarters. Here's an example of one that I did. So keep it or don't, but if you do, you can get even more use out of it. Much opportunity for this. These are 1/2 inch increments. They're great for making strip sets, which is basically what I'm doing. So I'm going to make 2. Look at that. We don't have enough to cut that, but if we open it up, we will, it's not quite 2, but we can get some more out of it. It looks like I can actually get one more square out of this, and since mine's going to be random, I like it. Look at that. And this is our leftover from that. You know, this, nope. I thought, wow, do we have 2 inches? We actually have 2 inches with this. Okay, so it's up to you what you want to do, but I wrote the pattern knowing that some fat quarters or some yardage is not created equal, and some might be shorter, meaning you might not be able to get the extra that I was able to play with at the end. So what that means is the pattern is written pretty much for everybody. However, if you have standard fabric, you don't have that issue, doing what I just did may make it so you can skip the step where it talks about adding in random pieces from the solid fabric, because you needed about 16 strips, and I don't think I have 16, so you might need a few, but not as many. So all of these were my extras. These are the extras that you probably won't get. If you do, that's great. But the pattern calls for you to take these pieces and then a 2-inch strip from your solid and mix it all in there with this. It's up to you. You can still add it, or you might be able to scrounge up these. Now I plan on randomizing my blocks, which is why this is going to work. If I had to have every single color, obviously I wouldn't be able to do it, because some of these didn't make it in here with the extras or the equal amounts. Okay, these little guys right here are going to be made into a strip set, but first let's make our big blocks. But that's what this is, so let's move this to the side. I'm going to show you the progress I have so far on this quilt. So I'm using the actual quilt that I had. I just decided to start pinning on it, so it's a little distracting with the purple blocks behind it and the fact that there's only one pin in each block. But this is the order. These are going to go up here. So it is kind of hard to see right now, so as I put the rows together I'll show you. So the only thing out of my patterns, the only one that was directional was this one. So I just made sure that my wood grain all went the same direction. And then this print was also directional, so I sewed every single grouping in the same direction or the same way. So when I actually put them together, this is right side up and this is upside down. So every group is like that. So it doesn't matter which direction you're using the quilt, whether this is the top or you use this as the bottom, you're going to have right side up. Half of these blocks are going to be right side up. So I did make sure that they were not randomly going all over the place. And then I've changed the layout on this several times until I got what I wanted, which is why it's a really good thing to lay them out before you start sewing. And what I wanted was some contrast with each set of blocks, but also to be able to do a straight line. And as I was moving blocks around, this is how I caught when I didn't turn something. So you want to make sure the greens are running through the diagonal and so forth. Let's start assembling it. So this quilt is actually square. The pattern I'm writing on the one I'm making today is going to be 6 by 8 rows. This right here is 6 by 6. By doing 6 by 8, it was easier to write the pattern. You can shorten it if you want, but it takes equal numbers of blocks when you have the 6 by 8. So, and these blocks were, I think, about 6 inches, and the pattern I wrote, they ended up being about 5.5. And so my new blocks are a tiny bit smaller. It doesn't really matter, but when I lay the new blocks out on here, there's actually some space between them, and that's why. And it kind of made me think, even though I like this look, it might be cute to put some sashing in there. So you can do anything you want. You can add to it or combine it how it is. So let me show you what is going on so far. These are not pressed, but I'm going to stick them up here. So this is my third row. Yeah, see the size difference? But we're going to put borders on this one too. So exciting about that. They're not joined yet. But you can see how this pattern is going down like this, just like with these purple blocks. Took me a little bit to play with the layout. I was rearranging it quite a bit, so I was happy with it. Sometimes I ended up with similar colors right next to each other in the blocks, where here and here is a definite distinction. The way these patterns were, it's going to give it a whole different look. But when you're all done, double check your lines. So here my green is still running through here. My pine cone is still running. Double check it before you sew your rows together. Really easy to get off. All 8 rows are up, and I'm going to measure to make sure I know what size this is so I can start doing the border pieces. You measure through the middle. 56.5 by 74.5. And technically I could round those up because there's a little bit of give with the seams. So I'm going to make it 57 by 75. It's close enough. Okay, so now I've started on my middle border. I just randomized them and I started to pair them up, pairs of twos, and I'm going to keep going, just join them together randomly, making sure I don't have two of the same next to each other. That's my only thing. Now, the way the pattern is written, you're going to need some extra squares. I was able to squeeze a couple extra squares out of my fat quarter, and so just keep that in mind. You might be able to as well, but I might still be needing some more fabric. So once I add my middle row, we're going to add the inner border, and then we're going to do this border going around it. There we go. This border, and then there'll be an outer border. So what I've done is I've got 3 inches, this one which is 2, and then another 3. Okay, and I have not picked out my border fabric yet. I wasn't sure what I was going to feel like doing. And I just got some new backing fabric in, and I'm honestly thinking I might take from that backing fabric. So I'll use the backing for this, but I'm still going to have more than I need. So let's see if that's going to work. This is one of those new fat quarter bundles from Keepsake. It could work. It's a nice neutral on the back side. And then I would put this as my strips here, but I don't like this print. So not happening that way. Let's see what else there is in my stash of stuff. Okay, so here are all my little pieces that represent what's on the wall, and these are going on my border, but I have all the fabrics. So let's go see what is in my list or my stuff over here. And I figure we need at least 2 yards. It might be less, but I'm going to try to find something with 2 yards. I think I have found some good options. First, I want to see if this is even the right shade of green. Not as excited about that as some of these others. All right, so these two are really pretty, and these are the fabrics I'm working with. Of course, I just mixed them all up, didn't I? I think that's actually it. So if I put all these right here, I like this one. I like this one a lot. This one, no. This is really pretty too. I like this because it has the leafy print. And I have two 2-yard cuts of this. So I kind of don't want to cut into this just to get 1.5 yards to 2 yards, because it could be good for a backing. However, it's one of my favorite choices so far. So here's that and that. I also have this one, but I don't have a ton of it, but this could work for my border. And these on the outside, and this is yellow, which is a no. I'm really liking this one and this one. Okay, let's come over here. In my mind, I was thinking I would be putting green on this. And I think I am still going to do green, because my focal point is actually the green, as these are running like this. I like this a lot. I'm going to do this. And then this will be the next border. And then another one of these over here. I like this. I'm happy with that choice. So I'm going to put all my little pieces aside. I'm not quite ready to finish those. Now what I'm going to do is make my borders. So you put the two sides on first, and then you put the top and the bottom on, and my top and bottom, or sorry, my sides are 75. So we're gonna cut this. I'm gonna make 3-inch borders. You know, this happens to be 108, which I love, and it's a remnant, so this is all the wider that it is, but it is 108. So the nice thing is I'm not gonna have any seams on my sides because of this. You can tell I've been sewing today. Again, I want these to be 3 inches. Guys, we're going to talk about this. I used all my little pieces. I made a bunch of little strips, and each time I sewed them together I doubled the size, and you saw how that happened. Well, I ran out of strips, and I started measuring, and this is where I needed to add extras, and I knew I would need to. So this is where it comes out of the same fabric that's in the borders, and all I did was add 1, 2, 3, 4 per side, and you may want to break it up a little bit differently. I know that these are going to be kind of, you know, they're every so many inches, 25 inches, 20 inches. But I also know that these are going to be on the end, and I'm going to make sure that when this comes down that there's not another green one in the same place, just like these. I don't want two next to each other. But keep in mind when you're measuring this, stretch it. You have a lot more give to this than you think, so don't just loosely leave it there. Stretch it. And now I can attach this to this and get the first side on. All right, I have got my center put together. I measured it, put the outer border on, and the inner border, and now the middle border, and it is on. And now what's left is to do another 3-inch border of this and go all the way around. And I actually did this on purpose. I wasn't planning on that happening, but I needed a few more squares, and I did intermix them over here. But I kind of like how that corner's turned out, so that'll be interesting when we're all done to see how that turns out. But now I'm going to measure this again for the last border. I'm done. It's turned on its side because it's too long for my wall, but it's wide enough to turn on its side. All right, so the main thing is that your green is going on an angle. Now this is turned on its side so it fits on my wall, because my wall is wider than it is tall. So I was able to turn it on its side. This is actually the top end over here. Top, bottom, doesn't matter. So everything is made from half a yard of fabric per fabric choice here, and I have 8 of those. And then I took what was left over after I made the blocks and ended up with 2-inch squares, which is how I got the border. And I had a ton of those, so I was able to incorporate them into this middle border, but I didn't have enough of them, so I did take some extra fabric from the middle, the inner and the outer border, and squeeze them in. And this is what it looks like on all 4 corners. And I did put a couple extra on the side. But other than that, it was really good. Now, if you made a narrower border, you might be able to get away with not having to add to it, or you can add a completely different color. You can randomize. I was going to split up the extra little squares like this and kind of randomly put them throughout the middle, so I would not end up with the ends like that, but I really liked how that turned out, so that's how I did it. Okay, so watch for the pattern. It will be at softSquares.com under products. You'll see the patterns link, and there should be this pattern as well as the other free patterns that I have. And if you don't see this pattern, keep checking back, because I'm in the middle of getting that one up, and hopefully you will see it when you do go. When this quilt is finally finished and quilted, it will go, I will update in the description that it's been done with a link where you can go to see the finished quilted quilt. Because I do have to send mine out to be quilted, I don't know when this will be done. And the same with all the other quilts that I do. When they finally get done, I will put an updated link in the description where you can see it finished. Just in case you're curious, in case you have looked at any other of my quilts and wanted to see them finished, I've done that with all of them. Don't forget, Makers Monday is every Monday at 3 o'clock Mountain Time, so come back. Thanks. Thanks for being here today. Please like, subscribe, share, and comment, and I'll see you soon.